Hi guys, it's Anna.
And this is Esther, and you're listening to Crashing Borders.
So this episode is going to be a very special one as we are interviewing Matt Komo, who is a film director and the previous head of social content at GoPro. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Of course, thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive into this.
So I remember I found your Instagram page a few years back, and right away I was just like sucked in. Your content is amazing, and I remember I wanted to hear your story right away. And then you also share quite a lot in like your YouTube videos and stuff. But then when we started the podcast, I just really wanted to have you on this show to like kind of like share your journey and your story, because I think it will be such a great motivation for everyone. So let's hear it from you then. If you could just introduce yourself quickly, like the past academic life and journey up to now.
Oh boy, wow. Okay, I'll try and keep it as concise as possible. The I think you kind of nailed it. My name is Matt, film director, kind of creative, just a little bit of mixture of everything, editing and shooting. I'm 27 years old, or 27 years young. I started making videos when I was like 13 or 14, so it's been a minute for me. And granted, this is like the most abbreviated version I could explain, but yeah, I started making videos around 13 or 14. Just kind of like grew a love and passion for it. Ended up going to film school at this place called Chapman University, which is a school down in Orange County. Majored in film production with an emphasis in cinematography. Minored in advertising, and then post college, I worked at a place called GoPro for 3 years, and had my hand in a bunch of different things and projects there. Left GoPro in 2018, and kind of like on that segue in transition from GoPro to like the next chapter of my life. I was doing a lot of stuff in the music business, so I started going on tour with a bunch of different artists and shooting music videos for like the Chainsmokers, Tiesto, Zed, Justin Caruso, Justin Blau, a lot of like EDM artists. And then I guess, yeah, how you guys like found me is, through a lot of my travels, and kind of like in my head, I kind of bracket is like the primary content of like what I'm there to do. Like I would shoot some like auxiliary stuff and kind of put it up on my YouTube, and some of that stuff picked up. And yeah, and flash forward years later, and I'm still doing it and still cranking out content.
It's beautiful to see that you followed your passion throughout all of this. And so, how did it start? Like you said that you started when you were like 13, 14. Was there
Yeah,
like a trigger? And then why, like, how did you keep being so passionate about it?
that's like a really good question. I think a lot of like younger filmmakers start out remarkably in like a very similar way, and it really started with making like these skate videos that were just so trash and so bad when I was young. It was just like me and my friends skateboarding outside, and um, I don't really like quite know exactly where the passion comes from for it. It's just something that I've always really enjoyed doing. I just really enjoy making things and creating things, and my just chosen discipline of creativity thus far has been, predominantly film or a visual medium. And I just feel like throughout my life, have been able to express myself the best through that medium. Um, so yeah, it's one of the very few things I've just never gotten bored of, and I just like, yeah, not every day is amazing, and like have a ton of energy to go create all the time. I don't think anybody has that energy, but like it's something that definitely uh, I've been able to sustain, obviously over a long time horizon, just because I like it.
I mean, that's kind of like the dream, to find something that you not really gonna get bored of and you enjoy doing, like basically for your life or for a longer period. So you also attended university, which is like kind of like a bigger topic nowadays, whether to
Yeah.
go to university or kind of just like learn from doing it, and especially like in digital like content like creation. I feel that many people who start out now, they prefer kind of like skipping university and then just like learning by doing. So what was your motivation behind attending university?
That's a good question. I think probably a lot of it was facilitated by my parents. When you're going into college, you're still so young. Especially I was young for my grade, so I was already in college when I was like 17. Most people are like 18 or on the older end, 19 in the States. Um, so in some ways, like I made the decision, but kind of didn't. But in hindsight, like that 4 years for me personally, I'm not saying it's the best thing for everybody, but it changed my whole life. Um, and like I really needed those 4 years to develop as like a person and as a creative. And I've met some of my like best, like long time, lifelong friends through that experience. And it really just kind of positioned me for the GoPro chapter and the chapters, coming up. But that was I graduated in 2015. And obviously we're kind of in like a bit of a different landscape here, 6 years after that, where there is just so much free information online and it is so accessible. That, I don't know if I was 17 now, if I would have the same trajectory. The world's just changing so fast and like you can learn so much for free. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's true. And so when you talk about this time at university, when you said you met some friends and you had some wonderful experiences, is there anything particular that stands out, whether it be academically or um, in your personal life, or yeah, things like this, some projects,
Uh,
experiences that just made
yeah,
you who
totally.
you are?
I think it kind of takes like, I guess, two approaches. I guess there's a couple parts to that question. The first would be like, yeah, on the personal life side of things, some of my best friends are my college friends, and even my roommate, who you might see walking up and down the stairs, was my roommate in college. So even through like my whole career, like I still keep a lot of those people really close. That's important to me. And then the second thing on like the professional side, um, it's honestly, it's really remarkable. There's like this, I would say 8 year window at Chapman where I kind of fall in the middle. There's people ahead of me and then people a bit younger than me, where it just seems like everybody's killing it. Like came out of that program. And I don't know like why that is the case. Like some of my really good friends shoot and direct and have done all of Marshmallow's branding since like 2014, before Marshmallow became Marshmallow. And my other friends direct Apple ads, and my other friend just got off a movie with Warner Brothers. Like it's wild that like little pocket of individuals in that time frame were all doing really well. So like from a professional standpoint, like it definitely helps for sure. Me at least.
It sounds like a really cool friend group to be part
Yeah.
of. Um, so another topic is that is quite hot nowadays is whether like when you come out from uni, whether to start your own company or go and get some more experience working for a bigger company. So when you applied for GoPro and got in, what motivated you to like kind of apply for a company before like starting your own business?
Well, so I actually got denied from GoPro, I think 2 or 3 times before I got the job. I applied for an internship and didn't get it. I applied for the ski and like snowboard, like media department. I didn't get that. And then my resume just kind of floated along to, her name was Leanne. She's a sweetheart. Her desk at the time, and I got on a call just like this. I don't know if it was Zoom or what it was back then. It was probably a Skype call, and like we just had a conversation, and she ended up hiring me a couple weeks later. But the GoPro thing too is it's weird. Like none of these decisions I like really thought about too heavily. Like it's always been something that I just knew I needed to do, and I've always enjoyed GoPro's content, and it was just such like an integral part of my life of growing up skating and snowboarding and surfing, that like it wasn't a question of like, do I want to do this? It's like I feel like I have to do this. And then it ended up being also in hindsight like a fantastic decision, and like a season of life that I will always hold like really like near and dear to my heart. It was a really good experience for me.
So how did this whole onboarding process kind of happen at GoPro? What did you think was your like unique selling point to be in the company, your personal brand? Like what made you stand out from the other candidates?
Totally. So that's also like you ask good questions. That's a very multifaceted question as well. Well, so I would say the first part would be I think I would say skill set. It was like kind of like the first differentiating factor. Like I have a traditional background in film, so I know how to shoot. I know how to story tell, but more importantly than that, if there's anything I'm really good at, it's editing and constructing things together, whether that's through Premiere, After Effects, all that. So it's kind of like that's why it's always tough for me to be like, yeah, I'm just a film director, or I'm just this, because it's like it's so far from that. Like I literally am doing all the visual effects or the whole sound design or making the music for some of the pieces. So it's like a very multifaceted thing. But I think anytime whether it's me or anyone, I think anytime you take an individual that has like a decent understanding of multiple facets of the creative process, like you can kind of just pick them up and put them in different places, and like they can excel. So I think that was probably one of the ingredients. There's obviously a lot that goes into that. That's probably one of the ingredients. And then I think the second thing too is that we're GoPro as a company is trying to market to a demographic of like from like 12 to like the 30-year-old action adventure type of person. That's literally me. Like I was the demographic that they're trying to market to, because I started working there when I was 21. So like long story short, we have a lot of meetings just like, you and I and us were talking right now, and like trying to figure out what to do going forward. And, I'm like, oh, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that. And like, this is what my friends would think are cool. Cause it was only me and one other person that were in that like age demo. And, I think people just like, they end up trusting you. They respect you, and you do what you say you're going to do, and you have a bit of skill. Like, they're just like that. Those are the basic ingredients for any success, whether it's film or music or working at a job. Like just basic block and tackle things, and luckily that also worked out.
I think you partly answered the next question as well, but we were wondering. So you basically like grew the brand's followers on social media, like on Instagram, from 3 million to 13.6 million.
Not
So
just me, the whole team. There's a whole team that's doing that as well.
yeah.
I'm the small cog in the machine.
But basically, like, how did you achieve this? Like, what was like your like unique point behind it? Like, how did you achieve it?
Well, there's just, I mean, that company is so big and like it has so much going for it. You know what I mean? So I mean, the products they kind of sell themselves. You're shooting some of the best athletes in the world. You have some of the best, you know, marketers and social media advertisers and editors. Like, there's a combination of a lot of different things. But I think what GoPro did really well is that more so than selling the product itself and being like, this is like the main feature and it can do 240 frames per second, or the specs are arbitrary. They more so just sold a lifestyle, and they made things look really cool. And when you would watch those like early Hero 3, Hero 4 ads, they were doing a lot that nobody was doing. Like they were using Glitch Mob and Overwork, which were like these EDM artists that like were just breaking through, and EDM was just breaking through. And you had these like crazy first person imagery that like no one had ever seen before. So it's a combination of a lot of those things. It was just like a very unique thing. And I think it just sold itself, to be honest.
Yeah, so when you talk about GoPro, you talk about all like this drive that the company gives you and like the team gives you. You worked into like on multiple launches and initiatives. What was some of like the favorites that you had when you on your time there?
Oh boy. Um, I would say so. My favorite initiative, we did this thing called Dream Reel, which I thought was really cool. That was kind of one of the first big projects that I was lucky enough to kind of spearhead. And we picked five creators or five people all throughout the world, from different parts of the world. and we were just like, "What's your dream?" It could have been anything. And with GoPro and a team of people, like we brought their dreams to life. So like I got to go to like New Zealand, I got to go to New York, I got to go to Peru, Arizona, like a bunch of really cool places and bring people's dreams to life. And that was probably one of the more fulfilling campaigns for me. I think anytime you help people and like you just see their smile, you're like, this is great. So that would probably be my favorite.
So, did you experience any like setbacks, like while working for GoPro? Did you have like any points where you would kind of like, I don't know, like fat stuck, or like you couldn't like deliver what you wanted, because like the initiative like kind of like, or like the whole company wanted you to go another way?
I mean, I think whether like you're working for a company like GoPro and you're in that structure or being an entrepreneur, like I think every day you're going through that like peak and valley of like, what am I doing? This works. This is not working. What am I doing? And like, there's always a million setbacks. And I've definitely like my career hasn't been, exactly smooth sailing the whole time. Like just like anybody's is, like you have those periods of time where like things are really difficult and they're really hard. And that's kind of like what I was alluding to earlier. Like honestly, the only thing that sustains you across time is actually doing something you like to do. I mean, and it's like really cheesy and you hear it all the time, but like that has kind of really only been the thing that has made me have the endurance thus far to keep going, is that I just like when I get frustrated or whatever the range of emotions, negative emotions are, you just say to yourself like, well, what else would I be doing? And there's nothing else I want to be doing. So you're like, I think that's when you're kind of in the right space. Doesn't mean it's easy. It just means that it becomes bearable.
Yeah, that's especially good, I think, to have this during COVID. I think everyone tried to like find their passion and just go with it. So after leaving GoPro, how did you start? Like, what was your plan to, establish yourself?
Totally. So I kind of had this like there was like a little crossover period. So before I left, like I'd already started working with the artist the Chainsmokers. And like I did a music video with my buddy Rory. He directed it for their song Closer. And that was like a year before I left GoPro. So like that relationship was already kind of like starting. And then also some of my socials at the time, like they were starting to also like pick up some traction. I was getting some videos and like the hundreds of thousands of views. So like I definitely like there wasn't really like a falling off point. It was like I stopped working at GoPro and I literally think a week or 2 weeks later, it wasn't any longer than 14 days later, I was on set shooting the Chainsmokers Everybody Hates Me music video. Like there was no stop or like any really gap. And there really just like hasn't been like a stop or gap since. Like one thing kind of rolls to the next. And like that's kind of a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing with like the film thing that like you can kind of just like, if you have a skill set that is transferable to multiple industries and multiple disciplines, like I can just like keep going, like this artist doesn't have anything popping this week, then I'll, move to the next artist or I'll move to the next brand. Like, it's a very versatile skill set.
So since then, as you already mentioned, like you worked with quite a few big names, quite a few like huge and exciting projects. So which type of project is usually like the closest to your heart?
Um, the closest project to my heart is my film that's actually coming out in a little over a month. It's about my grandpa and his like battle with Alzheimer's. That I think, no, I don't think I probably know. I think this piece that'll come out, I've been working on it for about 2 years now. Short film. I don't think anything will ever come as like close or as personal as that. And I've found a ton of fulfillment in yeah, I guess fulfillment's the best word out of doing that. So anything that touches on like a personal subject matter is like I would say uh the things that like drive me the most. What was the specific question again?
Yeah, no, it's about like you've worked on like so many like different kind of like projects, like music videos as you mentioned, or like you shot like an advertisement for Michael Kors and stuff. So like what is like kind of like the project or the type of project that is like the most exciting or like the that you enjoy the most?
Totally. So if it's not about a personal subject matter and it's for like a brand or something else, like I don't know why, but I always feel like this need that I have to like do something that's somewhat beyond like my scope of capability. And like that is always kind of what makes I don't know, makes me like really excited about doing the thing. So like for example, the Michael Kors spot, it had like a custom song at the end. So like did a custom score for it. And like that was a part of that campaign that like I was excited for because like I got to make the music for it and also like be involved in a global campaign for a new line for a massive company and I'm like directing it and making the music and then also in it. It's just like a very unique thing. So yeah, I think just coming to the table with these like bigger projects was something that like I don't know if I can do yet. And I like find enjoyment in seeing I think I can do that.
Yeah, so when you talk about this excitement, how do you keep yourself to like how do you keep challenging yourself all the time? Because you say that these challenges are what makes you go forward and expand your skill sets. But how do you just keep pushing yourself every day to become like better at this while you're established somewhere?
um it's interesting because like the outside looking in, they probably look like these like quantum, maybe not quantum leaps. But they look like big leaps from like one thing to the next. Like you did this, and then now this next thing's like it seems a lot bigger. But like the daily grind of it all isn't glamorous. Like it's just I don't know, watching a couple more YouTube videos about something I want to learn, or trying to something different in the like editing department or trying something really small on the story side of things. It's really just like these little micro adjustments that just compound over time. If you're like if you distill it down into its simplest thing, let's say you watch one YouTube video about that's a tongue twister about something you want to learn every day for the next 14 days. You'll have 14 videos worth of information that you wouldn't have had if you just didn't do it. And like that only takes a couple of minutes to do. That's obviously the simplest way to describe it. And that's just kind of like what I like to do. And like we alluded to it earlier, like there's just so much free information now that like the way I see things, like there is no barrier to entry. The only barrier to entry is like your own drive to like want to learn whatever said thing is. And luckily with YouTube and Twitter and all these social platforms, like we have as a creator, now we have control of the distribution. So like that's never happened before, like ever. Like I've never, there's hasn't probably ever been a time in life where like a 27-year-old for 2 years can go make a film and then self distribute it to hundreds of thousands of people like instantaneously for free. Like that's like crazy. And like that's a luxury of the world that we all live in now. And it's just, taking advantage of that to the best of our ability.
Yeah, especially now with COVID, because like we at university we obviously had like face to face lectures and everything, but now as we like everything went online, like I think it just became more obvious that like there are so many things online that we can access for free and we can just like go on and develop ourselves. But you also like live. Yeah.
I was gonna say, think how crazy this is. Like, I've never met you guys before in like my entire life, and you
Yeah.
guys have never met me. But, like, you watched some videos online that you thought looked cool, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna reach out to him." You found my email, and like, you sent me an email, and I responded, and now we're having a full conversation. Like,
Yeah,
that
and yeah,
could have not have happened a decade ago. Like, it's insane.
that's also so crazy because like with Esther we were like this is our first podcast we just like started going because why not, and then we reach out to like all these amazing and awesome people and they just like respond, and it's just like such an amazing like kind of like feeling to know that these people will kind of like help you to go and develop yourself and just like help you like go along, and it's quite a cool feeling, and it's just like encouraging everyone to reach out and ask your questions, and I'm sure that there will be people who help you and who answer. But yeah.
Totally. That's gotta make you guys feel good. Congrats on the first podcast. I'm so honored to be one of the first ones.
Thank you. So back to the kind of like the interview. So you live a truly, truly busy lifestyle. Like you go and travel around the world. And so how hard is it to kind of like stay connected or close to your family and friends? Um, like how do you do it?
Um, as far as seeing them in person, fortunately, I have the luxury of living in LA, and my parents are in Orange County, so it's about an hour and a half drive. So that's like it's really convenient. Other than that, like FaceTime calls, texts, like if you want to get a hold of someone, it's like it's easy to get a hold of them nowadays. But I think anything that's important to you, you make a priority for. So I try to prioritize calling my dad, calling my mom, calling my sister. It's important. And like no one's ever too busy for that stuff. So I just do it. It's like pretty that simple.
Yeah, and then your work is obviously based on your skill set, but it's also based on your creativity and your relationships and your experiences. How do you stay creative and how do you come up with new ideas? What
uh,
inspires you on a daily basis?
that's the hardest part is figuring out how to be creative and like also too like it's a blessing and a curse that like people come to me and they expect a certain level of quality and a certain aesthetic with things, and it's not easy to do. Like stuff takes a really really long time and it's not really scalable. um but how do I stay creative? Working out helps me personally a lot. I like to run, I like to listen to music, I like to read, um, all of those things. And then I try to inject like a lot of my own like personal experiences and emotions into different projects. But yeah, the creative things, it's hard. There's so many days and times in my career where I've like just sat down all day and I'm like, I just can't pull anything out of me. Like that's the hardest part. Like with anything creative, music, film, art, like you're literally starting with a blank page, a blank timeline, a blank whatever, and you're trying to fill it with something that people can relate to. It's the hardest thing in the world to do for a living, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. So how did this whole pandemic influence you? So you used to travel around the world for years. So did the virus force you to stay in one place for a longer time? Like, how did this make you feel? Like, kind of like both physically and mentally.
Uh, I thrived during the pandemic, to be completely honest, because I mentally blocked off that time before COVID happened to work on my film. Um, because we shot everything in like I started writing it in July 2019. We shot most of it in October and December 2019, a little bit in February of 2020. And like in my close circle, I'm like I call it being like spit out of the tsunami. I'm like at that point I was 26 and I'd been traveling and just going and going and going for like a good portion of like 6-ish years. That I was due for a break. So like my break was I'm gonna just sit at home. I'm not gonna travel. Like I don't want to book any jobs, and I'm going to work on this film because it's the most important thing to me right now. It just so happened that the pandemic happened, and it was just really serendipitous timing. So I doubled down on the project. I doubled down on working out and getting outside as much as I could and were allowed to, and it actually was like a very productive period for me.
As you already mentioned that you are doing a short film about your grandpa.
Mhm.
Can you just like tell us a bit about this one? And like when can we see it and about like the whole story behind it?
Totally. So the SparkNotes version of that is it's about my grandpa and his battle with Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is it's like a neurodegenerative disorder, aka memory loss. So like I always intended on making a story about his life. But kind of like what we were talking about this whole time about traveling and going and going and going, like I just like never really had the time to do it. So it was around, I would say probably May or June of 2019. He fell and his like condition just sped itself up pretty much, like that his fall like exacerbated it. So I knew I just like that was like a sign from God that I needed to stop everything that I was doing and work on this. So wrote it in July 2019 and got a crew of people together, and we shot it in October, December, and February. And it's the story of his life, him meeting his wife, who unfortunately died of cancer really early on in their marriage. Um, Talks about my relationship with him, the implication of the disease on him and the family, and it's definitely it's the most important thing I've done in my whole life. Like as far as creatively, it's the coolest and best thing I've ever done by far, but also it's given me the most overwhelming sense of purpose out of like anything I've ever done. So we're going to do a premiere in LA. Actually had a call with my event producer this morning about it, and we've been trying to plan it for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully end of July is the date that we're looking at. And then I'm just going to self-release it on my YouTube channel, probably a couple weeks after the premiere, because I just want zero barrier to entry. I want people to go on my page and watch it and just share it, and I just want eyes on it. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. It's a tearjerker.
Thank you so much. I think that's so beautiful the way you talk about it. And especially like after the pandemic, I think it's so important that so many people were connected with, what's important out of their job or their family, or like, and took on projects that were dear to their hearts. And I thought like that was super important. Like same, like my sister's in Australia and I don't see her often. And then during the pandemic, we kind of started like doing some music together and like reconnecting sort of like this. I think I know taking like projects close to your hearts, especially during the pandemic, is super important.
Mm.
And so what a sort of final advice takeaway would you give to the people to like tell them, motivate them to follow their dreams and passion, or like start their business, go their own way?
Yeah. Like trust me, I get it. Like doing something that you don't know is like, it's very scary. It's intimidating. There's probably a high risk of failure. But I think I look at it in a different way, where it's like, well, like what else would you be doing? Like, like what's the alternative route? Like you take a safer approach and you go throughout your life and you're 40 and 50 and regret that you like didn't take that risk, or whatever your calling is. I think we all innately know what we want to be doing and like what inspires us, and what are our ideal lives, like what we want them to be. It's just like you really just gotta have the courage to just do it and figure it out. And it'll never turn out exactly how you planned it, but I think the pain of regret of not trying is worse than the pain of the failure of trying it for a couple of years and it doesn't work itself out. And that's how I continue to live my life going forward. As a risk, self-funding this whole film and doing all this and turning down all the other brand deals and jobs. So like, I'm also living my own advice. It's just at a different it's in like a different vein. I'm still trying to push into that like next unknown of my career and trajectory. And a lot of the, basic ingredients are the same. It's just like here's something I want to do, and it's like right here, and we're right here. So how do we get from here to here? And how do we just not lose like motivation and like our sense of self throughout that process? And yeah, that's kind of really it. I would just say just jump in, be calculated with it, and like it'll work itself out if it's truly meant to be for you.
Thank you guys for listening to our episode with Matt, and stay tuned as we have some really special episodes coming up.